So this is the third referencing video and the last in the series. In the first video, we talked about why you would be referencing and starting to think about how we might use in-text citations and a basic format of in-text. Then in the second video, we started talking about how could we use in-text or footnotes. So here, I want to go back to my sample piece of work, and I want to just go back over the fact that a really strongly substantiated argument is going to have more than one piece of evidence for every point. So what this means is that when this student was talking about the definition of the assistance dogs, they included one quote. This is a quote from the assistance animals place, right? And Paul Harper, who was working with the Assistance Dogs Australia. Okay. But Paul Harper is supported by other resources who have said virtually the same thing. So what that means is that this student has then gone on to put the additional resources that support her thinking in that same footnote. And as I started to show you in the other practice one, you can do this with in-text as well. The only rule is that you need to put in your proper citations and you need to separate them with a semicolon. So a semicolon is the one that's the dot and the comma, okay? You put that in between each of your sources to show us that a new source is coming. You'll notice as well that all the sources are done in the exact same format. It's the same for when we do in-text citations. There is a semicolon between them and we're using the same format. So it's really important that you're thinking about how best can you support your data, because what we want from your paper for it to be fully substantiated is a range of resources that work together to prove a point, but then at the same time you might not have enough words to quote every single one. You don't have to quote them all if they're saying similar things. And that's where the really high level pieces come out, because they're not just listing sources off. At the beginning, we ask you to say, first this was shown by so-and-so. Hang on. First, this is supported by all of that. But what we now can start to do, because we're thinking at a much higher level, is now we can start to put in multiple references to actually link more points at the back as well. This is going to be really useful, particularly for students who don't have a lot of room for additional evidence but have been told to add more stuff in. So really think about how you use your sources creatively. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is when you're referencing, it is useful to actually have references in your figures so that you can make sure that we understand where you got that information from. This student has chosen to do a full footnote in their figure. You don't necessarily have to do that. You could just use a short in-text just for clarity. What I also want to make as a point is that if you are doing footnotes, please use them correctly. This student has, this is a draft version of their paper. They have put their footnotes on the inside. Footnotes always go on the outside. Okay, but then what's confusing is that in-text citations go on the inside because they're inside the sentence. So while there are lots of different nuances and it can take a little while to get your head around, if you can do this properly, it's going to set you up really well, not just for year 11 and 12 studies where you have to reference, but into university. The main thing you need to remember is that you must be consistent. Oh, my computer's frozen. So if you choose in-text and you do in-text, fantastic. But if you choose footnotes, then do footnotes. Fantastic. Do not do both. You only pick one or the other. You must reference the hell out of your paper. It's really important that you are referencing everything you can find. Show us how much work you've done. And this is where the difference is going to come out from those people who worked really hard in term 2 to get sources and those people who didn't. because you just won't have a lot of information